going into a community with different hidden rules and not understanding those hidden rules. That's where tactical communication can help you. Even the household dynamics. Now keep in mind, this is not black or white. And when I say that, I mean there's no straight line in the sand that it's either this way or that way. There are always shades of gray. However, these are tools to put into your toolbox that you can pull out. And one of those tools that I like to use is the household dynamics. Now, when you deal with households in under-resourced communities, they tend to be more matriarchal. So whereas the men in under-resourced communities are the protectors, that's the power source, the ability, and it may sound primitive to you, but it's so true. The ability to be able to fight and defend and intimidate, it's a necessity when you're growing up in an under-resourced community, because at any point that power can be challenged and someone could try to take something that you've worked hard for or come in to disrespect everything that you've worked for. I don't know anybody that lives in poverty that really wants to be there. People can say that, but the minute you get opportunity to be out of there, you're going to be out of there. So it tends to be more matriarchal because there needs to be someone that's a reason, that you can reason with, someone that can calm a situation, someone that can be more nurturing. And that tends to be the mother, the grandmother, the sister, the girlfriend, the aunt. So in those communities, you lean more towards the matriarch. Where in middle class, it tends to be more patriarchal. A typical family structure that you would like to see, a father, a mother, and kids. So when you're dealing in middle class, you're usually good with either parent, but it does tend to be more patriarchal. Now in wealth, it really just depends on who has the money. I mean, you got these situations, you see some of these child stars where they have the money and then they're kind of guiding the parents where they go. Or if the uncle has the money or the grandparent has the money, that tends to be the head of the family. Now, some hidden rules for first responders. And if I would like for some of you to type in, if you know, in the questions box, some hidden rules for first responders. But I'll tell you a couple of my favorite off the bat. And Gary, I know this is one of your favorites, but when you're eating at a restaurant with your family, as law enforcement, we're going to sit. I even know firefighters. We're going to sit with our back to the wall, and we're going to cover all exits for very different reasons. Firefighters that tell me they do this, they want to know where all the exits are, because you never know when a tragedy is going to happen. If a fire is going to break out, an explosion is going to happen. They want to make sure not only they have all the exits covered, but they look for all the emergency exits and all the fire extinguishers, and they pay attention to behavior and body language. Whereas law enforcement, we never know who we're going to run into that we may have arrested or even just cited. We don't know if there's going to be a blind attack. We have no idea who's going to recognize us. It may not even be a situation where someone recognizes us. It just may be a random act of violence. But we want to be as prepared as we can. So we make sure we sit with our back to the wall so no one can sneak up on us, and we understand every exit so that we can direct people if something happens. Another hidden rule for law enforcement, and this often helps when I explain this to the community that I serve. When I'm speaking with a person that has their hands in their pockets, I always ask them to remove them. Now, if it's cold and they're like, or it's a habit, I'll say, hey, I always explain, listen, I have no idea what you have in your pocket. And there's no way that I can react if you decide to come out of your pocket with a weapon or a firearm or something that can hurt me. At first I don't have anything in my pocket. I'm not going to do anything to you. And I just remind them, I get it and I understand. However, I have had it happen to me before. And just like you, I want to go home. So if you want to put your hands in your pockets, I'm all for it. If you mind if I just feel your pockets, make sure there's nothing in them. I don't need to stick my hands in your pockets. I'll just feel them, make sure nothing's in them, then they're fine. Or some people just opt to say, and I understand, and they keep their hands out of their pocket. But I find when I take the time to explain that hidden rule, our interaction becomes better because I gave them the respect to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not just because I said so. Now, another one of the elements that we talked about was language registers. Within language registers, the definition is going to be, you know, more the level of formality. And I hope everybody understands what I mean when I say the level of formality in a language and how it's spoken or written. And two of the ones that we like to cover the most and tactical is the formal and casual registers of language. And if anybody has any questions about those, please put them into the question box. Now, when we're doing this live, this part is much more fun because I get to pick on you all and have two volunteers read this off. But for the sake of it today, I'm just going to read it off myself. Now, casual register may sound a little bit like this. What's up? Formal response, how are you doing? Casual, my bad. Formal, it's my fault. Please excuse me. I accept my responsibility for my egregious errors. I apologize for my faux pas. I love when people read that because they never say faux pas. They always pronounce it like it looks, and I always enjoy that part. Casual register, it might just be, but in formal register, it'll translate to I made a mistake. I feel uncomfortable. I do not wish to comply with your request. Now, we're going to give an example of formal and casual register, because sometimes in law enforcement, we have to talk to people and we really don't want to hear everything. We're kind of stuck on that old like TV show, like the facts, just the facts, nothing but the facts. But I'm going to give you an example of why it's important that we hear people out no matter the register that they're talking in. So I'm going to have a video coming up here soon, and it's going to be about a gas station robbery in a faraway land called Cleveland. And this is going to be video number 1, or I'm sorry, gas station video, the first one.
Okay, give me a second.
And everybody, just so you know, this first video is going to be in formal register.
Hey, I'm Officer Yunt. I was told there was a robbery in progress here, and you're a witness. What's going on, man?
Yes, sir. I was in the back of the store, and a gentleman came. He pointed something shiny at the teller. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
Okay, it's okay.
At the cashier, and he mumbled something to him. The cashier just reached in the cash register and gave him the cash. I think it was the cash. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
It's okay. It's normal.
And I believe he went out that door, which would be an east door.
Okay. Did you see him get in a car, or did he run on foot?
No, sir, but he did have on dark gray jeans. They were stonewashed. He had on a black hoodie, and he had to have longer hair because I saw like a blondish brown hair come out of the I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
It's okay.
The side of the hoodie.
Okay. Have you ever seen this guy around the neighborhood before?
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay. Well, your information is going to be helpful, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's discuss the information that we gathered in there. Now, if anybody paid attention to that video, I want you to type in the question box some of the descriptors and some of the things that the individual, that the witness gave to the officer about what happened. And as they come in, can you go ahead and just fire them off to me, please? Now, a lot of times in situations like this, people's perception of what happened, it can often lack vital details and descriptors, and that's kind of normal in these situations. So we like to allow people to take time to give it. However, when people aren't talking in what we feel is the normal register that we're used to hearing, we tend to discount their information. Have any descriptors come in yet?
Yes. The suspect went out the east door, very specific, light brown hair, east direction, hoodie blonde hair. he called the criminal, quote unquote, gentleman. Interesting. Someone else said the term, the descriptor stonewashed jeans. Right?
Yes,
A
that'd
lot
be
of people
great.
think, apologized repeatedly for being nervous. Very straightforward and able to verbalize his emotions.
So would you say,
Go ahead.
would you say, and I want you all to answer this in the question box. Would you say that that witness did a good job in providing the officer with a descriptor? What was the response on that one?
Well, I just wanted to point out that someone pointed out that he didn't actually identify the weapon, but he did identify stonewashed gray jeans. There's a lot of people saying yes to the question. From my middle class lens, he did a good job. Everyone thinks it was excellent, very clear with details. Pretty much everybody's a yes. It was okay, but too formal. That's the only slight criticism we have.
All
Good with
right.
hair color and direction and jeans.
Okay, so that was formal register. Now we're going to watch a video on the same exact incident, but it's going to be in casual register. And I want to see at the end what information you can gain from this video.
Hey, I'm Officer Young with the Pickle Police Department. I'm here to get some information from you about a robbery.
Yeah, man. So check this out. All I'm here for, I'm in the back getting some milk. I'm chilling around the corner house. I'm at my sister's house with her little bad kids, and they running around. I tried to tell her earlier, get the milk now. But no, she was just so confident that we got enough, she didn't even get enough, and these little bad kids running around. Long story short, they spilled a little bit of milk they got. Now I gotta come here. I get here, I'm in the back, coolers ain't acting right. I'm asking them about the dates on there. And next thing you know, old boy come running up in here. Now, I kind of thought he was on some sketchy stuff anyway, because it's like 80 degrees outside. He got this old Rocawear hoodie on, and these raggedy Rocawear jeans. And he got some, it's like, I don't know, some 2012 and ones on that
Okay.
I didn't even think you could still get. Next thing you know, he all up in old boy grill. I'm thinking like, man, I'm supposed to be just here getting some milk. Next thing I know, I'm like, is that Pookie? It kind of looked like Pookie a little bit, but it might not have been. I mean, I'm not saying it was Pookie, but I know he went to jail, so he could still be locked up, but he was kind of messing around with Keisha, and Kim found out. Next thing I know, they got to fighting, and then boom, they figured out when the police got there, he got warrants, now he gone. Either way though, dude had this little 9, he trying to act like he gonna pop off, but you can tell it wasn't loaded because the clip was halfway out. Either way it goes, I know dude, all he did was bounce up out the door. I mean, if it was Pookie, he probably over there at Keisha's house, because that's what we always run around with anyway. Either or though, man, to be honest with you, dude wasn't gonna pop. I could tell it wasn't loaded. I mean, dude gave up the money, but for real, it really wasn't that serious as far as what he tried to make it. Am I good though, man? Because milk is already kind of warm, and I really need to get back.
You're good, man. I just want to ask one more quick question. Do you know Pookie's real name? Is that just his street name, man?
Oh man, I'm not saying it was Pookie, man. You know,
Okay,
no
okay.
snitching right here. But what I am saying is that it could have been.
And I can find him at Keisha's place.
Hey, maybe.
All right, man. I appreciate all the help.
My man.
All right, so now let's talk about some of the information that we got from this video. Also, I want to know how many of y'all would have stopped him at the very beginning and just told him, hey man, that's too much information, just give me what happened. And you can start shooting those off to me as soon as they come in.
The yeses are overwhelming.
Someone's
Yeah.
being honest. They said they would have stopped him in the beginning. Interesting. Interesting, they said no snitching, even though it sure looked like Pookie and it was already at Keisha's house.
So what's some of the information that y'all got from the witness?
Dude had a gun even though he thinks it wasn't loaded. That guy was great. He
Yeah,
got life
even
events along with the current situation. A possible location, very important. Clip was halfway out, very specific. Knew the weapon, knew it wasn't loaded, that he wasn't going to pop. Great description of the guy and where he might be, very detailed. Not intending to shoot. Brands and style exact of clothing. New information about the neighborhood and possible location.
So you see the benefit of letting the individual get to that information. And there's a reason why you people who usually speak in casual register form their information. And that's a process that we'll go over in the full day of tactical communication. But I just wanted to point out, just letting them speak a little bit longer, how much additional and how much more information that was received. Now, the thing with us as first responders, and I'm talking to all of you, is that I get it. Some of us are going to do things that you're learning in tactical naturally. I was one of those individuals that did this naturally. But what it did was it allowed me to be able to articulate to those other first responders who can't do what we do naturally. And I had no way to articulate it. I didn't know how to formulate it. I could just do it. Well, this allowed me the ability to do that. And I get it. Some of us are curious. And what happens, I find with our workshops, when we get first responders that are curious, we get an abundance of questions during the workshop. And we're never being rude when we have to table some questions to the end. It's just in order to keep a good time frame, we make sure that we ask people respectfully to table some of the questions so we can do that. And some first responders could care less. They're just forced to be there. And I get that at times when I get at least one or two in every seminar. But just like I tell them, I'm gonna tell you, I promise you, if you just come and just listen, even if that's all you do, you will leave that workshop with more tools and richer than when you came in. Now, all of this sounds good and great, but how do we know that tactical communication really works? Well, I'll tell you how we know this. So, and my wife introduced me to tactical communication inadvertently. She went to Bridges Out of Poverty, loved the training. She proceeded to tell me about the entire training over a 45-minute dinner, which didn't work out good because one, it was called Bridges Out of Poverty and I'm from poverty. So my first thought was, what can you teach me about poverty? And you're from upper middle class. Two, it went out to other because she tried to tell me about an entire day's training in 45 minutes. So she proceeded to say she was going again, and she did. She went a second time. Well, the second time she went, she came home just as excited and renewed as she did the first time, which kind of piqued my interest a little bit because my wife is not easily excited about trainings or things. So she did the exact same thing again. Then she looked at me and said, and I'm going a third time and you're going. Well, me being where I'm from, I'm from inner city, I'm, officer, SWAT guy, A-type personality. I'm looked her dead in her eye and I'm like, oh, I'm going. And then I say, yes, dear. Okay, I'll go. Whatever you say. So we go, and the instructor at the time, Stephen McDonald, we got paired up because there was an odd number, and he just kind of started listening to some of my experiences and asked me, hey, are you willing to facilitate this? So I looked across the room at my wife and she said yes. So I said yes. And I asked him his target audience and he said first responders. And I said, you're not going to get first responders to willingly take a class called Bridges Out of Poverty. He says, no, we have tactical communication. It's geared towards first responders. Well, everybody knows if you paint it black or call it tactical, us first responders, we're going to be all over it. So I was all on board. What does it take to get Jody here? Money. How do we do that? Don't know. We went on a 2-month campaign. The Lucas County Health Department finally flipped the bill. Great. Got the money. What do? All right, we get all the shot callers in one room. You're really not making this easy on me, Stephen. So we went on another campaign. We got the people from the mayor's staff. We got city administrators. We got council people. We got police chiefs, fire chiefs from surrounding cities. I mean, we made sure we got people from social work, mental health board. We just made sure we got everybody in the room and that we could. And May 15, 2018, Jody Farr came, and I'm gonna tell you what, she did a great job breaking down tactical communication. In the smaller picture that you see, that's going to be Chief Crawl. He's the Toledo police chief. And Chief Crawl just was amazed at the information. He was like, oh my gosh, this is so right. I want my next police academy to be trained in this. The bigger picture is Chief Michael Navarre. That's my current police chief, who used to be the police chief for Toledo. And he was the same way. He was like, this is amazing. This is great information. I want all my officers trained in it. Well, now he has an in-house officer training in it. So we're ahead of the curve on getting our officers trained in it. Now, although the information was great and they walked out of there like, this is going to be amazing, they had no idea that 6 weeks later, tactical communication will be put to the ultimate test by the way of an officer-involved shooting on July 27, 2018. And we have a video of the news clip.
Deadly shooting. Toledo police telling WTOL SWAT officers Kenneth Crable and Ryan Babcock both remain on paid leave tonight. That is protocol. Dashcam video showing those officers chasing Lamar Richardson Friday evening. Richardson was a robbery suspect who police chased earlier in the day in a stolen car. The officers shooting and killing Richardson when they say he reached for his gun. Both Crable and Babcock have been on the force for 5 years. Almost immediately after that shooting on Friday, several people in the neighborhood came out to see what was going on. Heated moments after Toledo police officers shot a robbery suspect in North Toledo. Ariel Onstein is live at the safety building with more on why the department made some of the tough decisions it did in those tense moments. Ariel, what did you find out? What you can tell us?
No riot gear, no canines. These were some of the calls Toledo police made while trying to defuse a potential riot after SWAT officers shot a suspect in North Toledo. Officers had to maintain calm while being verbally assaulted by a tense crowd Friday evening. From keeping riot gear off to putting canines behind the scenes, Toledo police made intentional decisions to keep the conflict from escalating.
I actually took a member of the deceased family into the crime scene to show that, so they could go back out into the crowd and try to calm people down.
Because situations like these are so fluid, it is difficult to write protocol for them. While Chief Crawl is concerned with his officers' safety in these tense moments, he wants the department to show restraint.
There's just things that we've learned over history, what helps a situation and what hinders a situation. And we try to make sure we use the least amount of pressure and force or anything to get our job done.
While there have been two officer-involved shootings this year, both within a week of each other, TPD has confiscated a total of 629 guns off the street since the beginning of 2018. Chief Crawl thinks this speaks to the restraint of his officers.
Okay, so everybody can see how tense that situation was. Now let's break down what happened. Now, usually when something happens that I know may make news or national news, I'll call my wife and I'll let her know what's going on. I've since refined the way that I do it. One time something made the news and I didn't call her, which she was not happy about. Another time when I was on the SWAT team, a guy was firing at us and I called her and I said, hey, somebody's shooting at us. You're going to see it on the news. I'll call you back. And she didn't hear from me for 3 hours. That wasn't good either. So I've since refined how I do things. So this time I was working. We're a neighboring city. I was assigned to go and patrol the east side of Toledo while Toledo police went to the north to deal with that situation. I put my phone on speaker and I put it in my visor and I talked to my wife as I drove and I explained to her what was going on. Now, when this happened, we're both very familiar with this training. I said, I hope he doesn't break out the dogs. In an under-resourced community, dogs are not historically the best thing to have. I said, I pray that they don't show up in riot gear. When you show up in a community that's based and built around certain situations and you show up like you're ready to fight, they're going to want to fight. I was praying that he didn't break out the SWAT team, but kept them around the corner for safety purposes. I was hoping that he would bring someone from the family in. Now, he did all of those things and then went another step. He didn't break out the K9s. He didn't put them in riot gear. SWAT team was there, but not visible. He brought the grandmother in. Remember, we talked about family structure being matriarchal. He was smart enough to bring the grandmother in. And then he went around all protocol and he released dash cam footage immediately to show what happened because of how things blew up on social media. Now, you can't make this up. The very next day, there was already a block party that had been planned and permitted within that same exact community. And of course, the news showed up the next day to ask the reaction of the community for what happened the day before. And we have that video as well.
The community continues to buzz over the latest Toledo police shooting, and Dick Berry is getting reaction as he talks to neighbors. It's a story all new tonight.
They're celebrating the positive side of life in North Toledo on this Saturday afternoon. It's the third annual Salem Lutheran Church block party at the corner of North Huron and Chestnut. But folks are also talking about what happened not far from here Friday night at the corner of LaGrange and Hudson. Pastor Mike Hank went to the scene of the police-involved shooting to minister to people. What he learned was there was hurt, fear, and anger in the crowd.
I think that the best thing that can be done is to get to know people who are not like oneself. It's the only way peace happens in this world.
For folks at the block party, seeing the immediate release of the Toledo Police dashcam video cleared officers of any wrongdoing. They have nothing but the utmost respect for the professional way police handled the confrontation with Lamar Richardson Jr., who was a suspect in a recent series of carry-out robberies.
The police have to do their job. Absolutely, they must maintain order and peace.
The guy was just doing too much crime. And he pulled his weapon out and stopped and turned around. That's what I seen.
And he produced the gun, and I guess they had to do what they had to do.
A shooting they say was justified when in self-defense.
But I like the fact that how everybody came together, and then once the video was shown to try to de-escalate everything, I just like the way everything came together and where everybody tried to unite and try to be safe with everything else.
Lessons in life at a block party where unity is the theme and the positive emphasized.
Tactical communication is only a one-day workshop, and we're going to talk about the video you just saw. As you see here, these are the objectives, and I want you, when you get a chance, to read through those, but I'm going to break that last video down. What I found out later, and this is all from reliable sources, was that the news did not show up for that feel-good piece. They showed up because they wanted everybody to express anger and disappointment in law enforcement, in first responders, and how that situation was handled. The community refused to do that after being urged to do it over and over. And I got this information from the people who were being interviewed, and they refused. What I also found out from someone in that community is the people that were interviewed, minus Pastor Mike, are not fans of law enforcement at all. And for them to put themselves in a position where they're on TV expressing their approval, that really meant something. It really meant something. So I asked my chief, can you talk to Chief Craw and ask him if the decisions that he made that day had anything to do with tactical communication? And he got back to me and said that Chief Craw said yes. The decisions that he made that day were impacted by what he learned in tactical. And I asked him, can I quote you on that? He said, yes, you can. Now, if we have time, there's the final community video that we can watch. It's 1 minute long, but I wanted to make sure that I put myself and Gary's information up on the screen and our contact information. You can also contact AHA with any questions or future trainings. And the reason that I have this last community video is there was an officer involved shooting here, and Officer Dia was shot and killed on the 4th of July of this year. And our community, because of some of the practices in the Bridges community that we have here, was able to come together as an actual community. And this is truly what we're building towards.
Civilians, public servants, those who have been elected to office, and even those who are our first responders. Every single day they put their lives on the line for us, and their only prayer is to get back home to their families safely. We cannot divide ourselves anymore by saying they are who they are and we are who we are. We must pray for each other, and it starts one person at a time. Every mosque, every temple, every church, every rabbi, every leader of every religion, every pastor must now begin to put aside what our divisions are and unite our community. You are my brother and you are my sister, and we stand together with a sense of solidarity. If you believe that, would you clap for that sense of solidarity that we will see in our community, in our city?
One of the things I want to really push here is what we try to teach emergency responders is to make them aware of where they come from. Most of our emergency responders, the overwhelming number of emergency responders that we recruit to this job, come from middle class or with middle class hidden rules. And when you bring people like that in and then thrust them into the poverty environment where overwhelmingly they're assigned, because people in poverty, generational poverty, utilize law enforcement services and emergency services much more than any other class, there's automatically a disconnect. So when we make officers aware of their baggage, what they're bringing to the table with middle class values, middle class hidden rules, and we talk to them about recognizing their own biases, economic biases, and then how they can better relate to people in poverty, it's automatically helping to build the relationships. What we hear is yes, we continue to hear how important community policing is in the building of relationships, but how do we do that? How do we get across? How do we communicate? That's really what tactical communication is. Stressing is this is the how-to. This is how you get there. So I really advocate for this for people who have Bridges programs to bring your emergency responders in, because as much help as emergency responders can be to your program, the opposite is also true. If you don't have a police department, a fire department, emergency medical people who are on board and they are working against your program, they can make life very difficult for your clients and for your program. So you really need them on board. And the buzzword for this is it's all about community policing.
We have thank you, Gary. And I think that's important because we have several comments and questions here. One of the questions is, could you briefly describe what's in the community video?
Yes, so on the 4th of July of this year, Officer Dia, who's 20, I believe he was 26 years old. By the way, my oldest son just turned 27 yesterday. So this is double personal for me, because I kind of put myself in a position where, what if that was my son? He was not only a fellow officer, he was young enough to be my son. Responded to a call and was subsequently shot and killed at this call. And keep in mind, this was July 4th of this year. And we're all well aware of the impact and the state that our country is in with community police relations. Well, what happened on July 5th was that the entire community, not part of the community, not some of the community, not middle class community, I'm talking the entire community, showed up in front of that police station. The people who rode motorcycles were on motorcycles. People that marched, the people that enjoyed cars were in their cars. And we really showed that we cared about what we're doing here in Lucas County, and that we cared about that young man's life and the life of the people in our community. And that was a huge hurdle, or I'm sorry, a huge step in the right direction. But there's a lot of Bridges work being done here in Lucas County, and we're seeing the benefits of it. It's still not perfect, and we're still not where we want to be, but that video showed the direction that our community is moving towards.
Awesome, awesome. So people were thinking, Deborah has asked, how would you recommend approaching a first responder group, that is police, on this topic if you're from the quote unquote outside? And would you do that first, or would you start with the Bridges community kind of trainings and that type of thing as they did in Toledo? Would you go straight to first responders?
I would say both ways. I would address it the way you're most comfortable. If you want to go directly to the first responders, I would say you go directly to command. You don't go to us patrolmen and patrol women. You go straight to our command and you talk to them about it. Also, you can talk to your local government, and you can talk to your Bridges community. In the workshops, I like to have both community as well as first responders taking this, because if you community members don't agree with what we first responders are learning, then we need to go back to the table and talk about it. But if you do agree with this and you want this to be something that all of our first responders have, then we need to go to the table and talk about how to get this mandated as well.
Angel, just very briefly, because maybe we have another big question after this one. Would these concepts be applicable for EMTs? And I think it was Gary said yes, but how do you change this for EMTs?
It works
firefighters.
for firefighters across the board. It works. I have firefighters and EMTs in all my classes, and the concepts can all be used. So yes, the answer to that question is yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So kind of a long question from Adrian. Do any of your emergency responders use, quote, handle with care notices to connect children and their families with social services and mental health supports? Seems like it would be a great fit or next step for officers trained in tactical communications.
That is an awesome question. Not where I'm from. We're not aware of that resource. But there's an area in the workshop that addresses the resources and the lack thereof. And one thing as first responders, we have been pushing for the last, I would say, 5 years hard. I mean, is knowing the resources within a community to connect people with. So absolutely, if there's another resource to connect someone with, we would be more than happy to learn about it.
Okay, great. I think we have time
Terry,
for one more question. Okay, Garrett, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to address the issue of this. Really, I hear this a lot. How do I get this started? Who do I approach? The first thing that you want to use are the popular, I call them buzzwords, but they are absolutely critical that you understand the hidden rules of language here when you talk with police officers. You want to go to the leadership. You want to ask this question: Are you a police department that advocates for community policing? Do you believe in community policing? And every time the answer is going to be yes. You ask the same question of your mayor, your city councilors, your leaders. Do you believe in community policing? The answer is going to be yes. Well, tactical communication supports the concepts of community policing because community policing is based on the process of building relationships, and that's what we're stressing. So it fits in perfectly as a complement. When they say yes, my agency is committed to community policing, then this training is also essential. The other thing that you can advocate for is by telling them that we will work to get the training certified in their state so that the officers get continuing education credits. These continuing education credits are critical because every state has a certain number that officers have to maintain. And when we obtain that level of certification for them and they're getting the CEUs for attending, that's just an added bonus. Usually doesn't cost anything for us to do that. We just have to make the application and show the process. Sometimes the agencies will help us with that. So they're getting continuing education credits as well as furthering their process for community policing.
Great, great. Just very briefly, the first time I heard Gary, the rest of us tried to do first responders at the national training at the national level, and we weren't always successful. And the first time I heard Gary present, I think it was in Oklahoma a while back, he said that they don't even give the first responders the books because it's perceived as, I'm getting something shoved down my throat. So do you still do that, Gary? Leave the books up front and say you can come and get one if you want it?
Yeah, that's absolutely. Whenever I do let me just say this for those of you who are not police officers, cops are the worst audience. They're absolutely the worst. I've been there sitting in those classes. So if they're being told to be somewhere, they automatically have a preconceived idea of what this is. And that's why Angel's first slides that says this is not cultural diversity, it's not racial training, this is not kumbaya. This is a tool for your tool belt, just like your handcuffs, just like your pepper spray. Sometimes you're going to use it, sometimes you won't. You approach it with the idea that you're here to learn something, and that's why I don't force them to take the books, but almost every time I don't, they'll take the books.
That's interesting. So this is almost like a caveat. Do not try this at home. You have to be, you have to be very in tune with this audience. We
I will
have
say
1
it
minute.
seems to
Oh,
be
go
better.
ahead.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any other questions that we haven't addressed?
I am trying to copy what Adrian has put down here, but she has a website, and so just get your pencil and jot this down because it won't let me cut and paste it. It's handled with care, wv.org/law enforcement protocol .php. So I don't know if we can somehow get that to you, but I think you start with handle with care wv.org and try to find the link to in there for law enforcement. So that looks like a good resource. Again, for the recording, you would go to ahaprocess.com/breakouts, and that you will be able to access the PowerPoint as well. We want to really thank Angel and Gary for today, and the videos and everything is just really, really meaningful right now. And someone from Rochester, New York said, so glad they came today because this is what their community really needs. So I know that both Angel and Gary are ready to help out and to give you some direction. Just let them know. Again, if you would write down your reactions to what parts were most meaningful to you, Gary and Angel will get a copy of your questions and comments. And I know that they would like to see what part of this today has really had an impact on you. So we thank you again, and we thank Lynn for being our technical person. We couldn't do without her. And awesome job.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Awesome, Gary and Angel as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we're 1 minute past. So thanks, everybody. And we appreciate you so much. Thanks for being here.